Hey, boys and girls. We got a special treat for you today. I've gotten the opportunity to meet with Mr. Elon Musk, and with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Musk, and I guess maybe you could answer a few questions, or actually tell. I'd rather hear from you than talk. I've been doing a lot of talking lately. I have to tell you about the best stuff. And okay, so we had the beta autopilot system. And and we did have problems. But the problems weren't with your system. They were with the roads. People are painting, either they don't paint in certain areas, or they paint right in the center. So how are we going to get legislation to make it so that things are consistent between states? In the old days, it probably didn't make much difference. But now we're moving into self-driving and...
I mean, frankly, I think for self-driving, even if the road is painted completely wrong, and a UFO lands in the middle of the road, the car still cannot crash and still needs to do the right thing. So, what really matters, the prime directive for the autopilot system is don't crash. That really overrides everything. So, no matter what the lines say or how the road is done, the thing that needs to happen is minimizing the probability of impact while getting you to your destination conveniently and comfortably. But the prime directive, absolute priority, is minimize probability of injury to yourself or to anyone on the road, on the pedestrians or anything like that. So, and it's really, it can't be dependent on the road markings being correct or anything like that. It's just got to be, no matter what, it's not going to crash.
Well, I still think that that the road commissions in one I'd better shape up, because, like I said, Corey and I had an issue, and luckily I got out of it. But what happened was they painted all kinds of lines all over the place. There was an old off-ramp and a new off-ramp and a bunch of cones and some flashing red lights. It was totally, I have no idea. If I had to take that thing and knew I had to take it, I would be totally confused as to what to do where. But when the car came into it, the lines are telling it, okay, go here. And that scared the living daylights out of me. If we would have crashed, if it would have been somebody, I used to race, and I kind of can get out of stuff, and even though I'm old, I'm kind of agile. But if we would have crashed, the press would have instantly said it was all your fault. And in essence, the fault lies in this massive mess that we were trying to keep up with. And then, quite frankly, I stopped driving in the right-hand lane. That was it. I mean, the car wants you to keep going back there because it wants you to follow the rules. But
no, you can change that. It's a setting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You'll have to show us that, because I don't like that one. But it's following it's following the rules, and that's great. But you have to have the roads at the same thing. So I want to make sure that we've got this on tape, or on whatever, not tape, but video, because I'm guaranteeing you somebody is going to screw up somewhere, and people have to know it's the road that can bugger the things up, as well as whether your autopilot thing.
I mean, it would certainly be helpful to have roads with accurate markings and everything. But like I said, really for self-driving, it's got to be, even if somebody tries to trick the car, they do not succeed in tricking the car.
Right.
Because people will do weird things. So it's got to be maintain safety no matter what, and don't let yourself get tricked. That's so.
Well, maybe that's the best segue ever, because what I want to do is I wanted to talk about. I actually John. What's John's last name?
John McElroy.
No, the guy that gave us a ride.
Head of the Silicon.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll just say John.
LA Silicon Valley.
Yeah, LA Silicon Valley, whatever. I thought. Anyways, he gave us a ride, okay, and we taped it, and you can hear me going, my voice went up about 3 octaves. I was so excited. Corey said he's got a sore ear from me giggling or whatever. I've sat in F-18s. I didn't fly them, but I was sat in them, and I saw how everything was supposed to work on the ground.
Yeah.
I flew, or through a simulator, I flew a C-17. I know what you can do and what you can't do, what autopilot will get it. And I never seen anything, never, ever seen anything quite like what you've got in the new self-driving thing. This is just absolutely brilliant. This should get into the marketplace as fast as possible. It's accurate. It's much more accurate than what we have in the Model 3. It's accurate. It's kind of aggressive because if there's a hole, it'll find that hole. It makes left-hand turns, which I've heard from everybody can't be done. I mean, these are the things that this will save more lives than airbags, seat belts, and anything else that anybody's ever gotten. Because
I think that's correct. It will.
Yeah. I was so impressed. I couldn't believe it. And I have some videotape, and I just asked you for using it. I want to put that out. I want the rest of the world to know what the new standard is, because in the auto world, some people are going to win, some people are going to lose, and some are just going to fade away. The more they fade away, the worse it's going to be for the general population. But I'm telling you, that system, I don't know who you developed or how it developed, but that is absolutely
it was developed
stunning.
internally. Like, we developed the hardware and the software. We've got a very talented team that we built from scratch at Tesla for autopilot software and autopilot hardware. It's just we've got a lot of talented people.
I got to ask a technical question. How many lines of code is in that thing? A bazillion? A trillion? Whatever?
Well, I don't think lines of code is necessarily a metric of goodness.
Well, it may be, but I mean, it's so intuitive. Either that, or it's AI and it's cognitive knowledge or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I think generally I would consider lines of code to be like a large number of lines of code to be bad, not good. And in fact, I would generally give like 2 points for deleting a line of code, 1 point for adding a line of code. And then the lines of code thing, when you have neural nets where you've
right, I got it.
It's not, there's a whole lot of statistics going on, basically a lot of dot products going on. The lines of code becomes especially not a figure of merit for when you've got a lot of complex neural nets operating. You have a lot of matrix math. I mean, that said, I think we haven't actually counted it, but I mean, it's maybe, I don't know, a few 100,000 lines of code or something like that.
Really? 100,000? That's amazing.
I would like it to be less,
Well, your philosophy about getting rid of lines of code, I have a philosophy about getting rid of parts.
Sure.
And the more parts you get rid. In fact, a long time ago, when I counted up the number of things in the wheel area, I said this should all be one part, and then
Totally agree.
yeah, and you got it. Actually,
I can tell you how that problem arose, and it was like, first of all, I think you can generally see the errors, the organizational structure errors. They manifest themselves in the product. So for the sort of wheelhouse areas of the body, there was a lot of engineering done, and there were a lot of right answers to the wrong question. So somebody would say, like, well, what's the best material to make this little section of the body out of? And what's the right material to make this little section? And I think we've got probably the best material science team in the world at Tesla, and then actually a lot of them also do work at SpaceX as well.
yeah, I know. I'm coming to that question too.
Yeah. So the engineers would ask, what's the best material for this purpose, best material for that? And they got like 50 different answers. And they were all true individually, but they were not true collectively.
Right.
And when you try to join all these dissimilar dissimilar alloys, and you have galvanic corrosion, so you've got to have better sealing, and you've got gaps that you've got to seal, and you've got to join these things, and some of them don't. Some of them need to be joined with rivets. Some of them need to be joined with spot welds. Some of them need to be joined with resin or resin and spot welds. And it looks, frankly, it looks like sort of a bit of a Frankenstein situation when you look at it all together. And it's I can't emphasize enough the nightmare of sealing in between the gaps. That is like that might be the most painful job in the whole factory is spackling on the sealant.
Yeah.
And then you have a little. if there's like a little error with the curing the sealant, or like just somebody who's been working for several hours makes a slight mistake, then you've got now you've got an MBH issue because you've got a little hole, and you've got a leak issue, and it's just like this is terrible. So, I mean, you can muscle through it, and we have, but it's just it's way better to have a single piece casting. And then you don't have any gaps, no sealant. You don't have dissimilar metals, and you can reduce the size of the body shop dramatically.
Right.
So just having the rear body castings for Model Y allowed us to reduce the body shop by 30%.
Yeah.
So there's roughly 1,000 robots on the Model 3 body line, which, by the way, is also not a figure of merit. You want fewer things, not more.
Yeah.
We got rid of 300 robots. Just with that rear body casting.
Yeah.
And then when we go to the front body casting, we're getting rid of another 300 robots.
Right. So I don't know if you probably don't have time for my stuff, but I have in my shop for 15 years a rear casting, a center casting, and a front casting to make a car.
Thousands, I totally agree.
Thousands of engineers, and I mean big time executives, and walk by it. Hey, have you ever thought of doing, well, you know, Sandy? And they don't do it. And they don't do it because we've got this body shop.
Sure.
And because they've continuously hung their hat on this thing, they figured, you know, this is the way it should go. But when you came up, I will tell you, I'm very disappointed. I thought I was going to see a single piece casting in a Model 3 as well. I thought you were going to shoot the two and then glue it together. But that's all right.
I mean, at some point we'll
getting over
probably switch to a single piece casting. But it's like I think we need to get probably the Texas factory and the Berlin factory going. And like we do have an issue of like it's hard to change the wheels on the bus when it's going 80 miles an hour down the highway. So you know, Model 3 is like was most of our volume. Model Y will exceed Model 3. But it's just, we just need basically an opportunity to kind of redo the factory without blowing up the cash flow of the company.
Right. Yeah. When people say, well, what's it like to drive the car? Because again, we've stopped in lots of different places. And I tell them, if you get a 7 Series BMW and drive that, that's what you're basically getting. It's the same sort of suspension feel as that. And you don't have to, you're not muscling anything around. Everything is tight and perfect, and tight's a good. And then when you go to those three, let's say 3 structural members, that I mean, you put a body on top of that, it's going to be a perfect build. And as a guy who had to work in body shops, and as a guy who used to make molds and dies and whatnot, it's really difficult to take a whole bunch of pieces and glue them together, and there's nothing, right? I'm just using fixtures, and then.
Well, you're going to have tolerance stack up. I mean, that's the issue. Is like if you've got a whole bunch of separate parts and each of them has got a given tolerance, even if that tolerance is tight, and it could be like 0.2 millimeter tolerance, but you've got like 50 parts. Okay, now you
multiply them together.
And
you can't win.
Exactly, and you're going to also have like just variance between cars. So that's for sure like one of the reasons why it's best to just combine the parts and not have separate parts, and then also just go for extreme levels of precision. Like one of the examples we use at Tesla is like Lego. So like Lego is super precise because the press fit. I think they're precise down to about a 1/4 millimeter or less. Basically about 10 thou. And
each one is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's got to be. And like if Lego is like press is too soft or too hard. Like if it's too soft, the press fit won't work. If it's too hard, you can't get it on.
Right.
But they can make something that is like a tiny fraction of a millimeter accurate, and it's a low cost toy. Right. Buy $20 for a Lego set, and so like if Lego can be that precise, then so can a car.
Exactly. Actually, I got to tell you, I applaud BMW for putting out the i3, but ugly. But the thing that we got from it was that carbon fiber body was absolutely perfect. And when if you had the stiffness of the castings down below, and you take a carbon fiber basically structure and put it over the top, absolutely every door is always going to be perfect. You won't have to have fixtures, you won't have to have anything, it just goes boom, done. That's ultimately what I think a perfect build is probably going to go for. But most people don't want to do it because they're talking about, oh, carbon fiber is so expensive. No, it's not. It's not really that expensive. And at the end of the day, you have to take it and look at it, a total accounted cost.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to basically, where's all the tooling and whatnot? How about all the scrap that you get on and on and on?
Yeah, I mean, there are some other issues with carbon fiber, which is that carbon fiber with resin has a coefficient of thermal expansion, which is basically 0. And if you have parts that are, say, aluminum or steel, that's aluminum's got quite a high, CTE. Stainless has, it's like about halfway. Yeah. So it's like, so then if you have like a hot versus a cold environment, like you can't have your doors jam. Yeah. So correct. Having matching CTE is pretty important for things like a door frame. So that's if we're using, say, steel, we probably need to stay with a steel door because otherwise we're going to get like CTE issues. Yeah. But
at the end of the day, we found out the tricks that BMW used. So they've got cross car beams, which is going to shrink the most. And they're embedded right into the carbon fiber. How is that possible? This will rip free. We tried this when I worked on the Boeing 787 and stuff. Yeah. And we tried that. And when you do the thermal expansion and contraction, it just rips free from everything. But clever design or clever engineering on BMW's part made it so that you could do that. So I'm not saying, run out and do this right now, but eventually, you guys are material science experts. I mean, you make your own. We know a little bit about what's inside those electric motors and actually the aluminum used for the mega castings. These things nobody has anything like that. Nobody's using it. Most people. I mean,
we had to develop our own alloy. Like so, it's like some of the challenges with doing like a large aluminum casting. There is you don't want to have a sort of a heat treat or quench step afterwards. So often in order to get good properties from aluminum, you need to
T6,
if you want to heat treat it and then the heat treating and any kind of like air or certainly water quench it's going to cause the thing's going to potato chip on you. It's going to basically warp. So we had to develop a custom alloy to make sure we could get good material properties, but not require any step after the casting that could distort the shape. That's a very important thing. Yeah. For example, like the Model S and X castings, they for the original Model S, not the new one, but for the original, they required a heat treat step afterwards, and so it was always a pain in the neck because we couldn't really expand the casting because it would run a pretzel on us, like just potato chip or pretzel. It's like you can't scale that. So we had to develop an alloy that was okay and it also had good elongation properties in the event of a crash. It was like kind of a hard materials problem. So
it worked out really well, and no one believes me. I know a fair amount about casting and whatnot, and no one believes when I say it fills up in 4 to 6 milliseconds. Oh, that's impossible. Really? Well, okay, fine. That kind of stuff is lost on most engineers because they don't take material science. I wanted to be a metallurgist.
Yeah, material science is, I think, one of the most useful classes you can take in engineering, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, the area that department I was going to be in at Stanford for grad studies before I kind of put that on hold / dropped out basically was material science.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of material science.
Well, I am as well. I think that that's something that I saw disappear when I was at Ford Motor Company because of the things that were going on in the late 80s and the late 70s and early 80s, and they just had to shed some stuff, and that went away. Like they don't invent materials there anymore, and actually no one else did either, or does either. So I think that those kinds of things are the things that maybe the bigger OEMs should be thinking about. I think bringing stuff back in, especially now. I mean, I don't need the size of an engine plant and a transmission plant when
Yeah.
I got a little dinky electric motor and basically a 2-speed gearbox or 1-speed gearbox.
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to be a big difference. I don't know what they're going to do with all that stuff, and I really don't know how they're going to start implementing this. I mean, you may have heard that General Motors said that 2035 they're going to be nothing but electric cars.
That's cool. Sure.
Well, that's a pretty big step. I've been saying for a long time. In fact, I had a lot of executives come in after I gave a speech and said, this was a couple of years ago now, and I said that the crossover point for electric over ICE is 2030, and basically that was because of tearing apart your car, the Model 3.
You mean a majority
the
of your car? When you say crossover point, how are you finding that?
50% of the vehicles are going to be sold are going to be, or more than 50% are going to be pure EV, or they're going to be hybrid. And I
say
believe
like hybrid, like no, for sure. I think it probably 10 years. It's probably majority EV.
Yeah, I truly believe that. But when I brought it out, I mean the analysts. I don't want to get too far deep into that, but analysts were saying, you know, maybe somewhere around 2045 there'll be about 15% EVs and whatnot.
Sure.
And now we're looking at California with 8% right now and going higher.
Sure.
And then you've got Europe saying, forget it, you can't drive here if you've got a nice vehicle, on and on and on. So a lot of people were hoping that everything was going to stay the way it was, or basically go back to the good old days, as it were. I was not. I was in your camp. Like I say, when I got your car initially, and never really been, I didn't care one way or another. Car's a car. We take it apart, we look inside, we find out how much it costs and what the techniques and technologies are, and then we just move on.
Sure.
With yours, initially, I don't like this, I don't like that. Then I drove it because I was the last one to drive that vehicle. Mm-hmm. And they said, you should really take this thing for a ride, see what it can. And I took it into a parking lot. There's a college that's near us, and I zipped around and whatnot, and I feel young again. I didn't expect that excitement, and then we started looking at the electronics and how much better even the wiring is. The wiring was.
We have a lot to improve on the wiring front. I think there's a lot more that can be done to improve wiring.
Yeah, well. Right now,
also like 12 volts. I mean, what are we still doing with 12 volts?
42 is where everybody should be, but
I think 48.
Or 48, yeah. But at the end of the day, we need to do something that'll reduce the wire diameters and stuff like that, and that's just nothing but cash in the bank.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that as well. I think
with the new SX, we're finally transitioning to a lithium-ion 12 volt.
Oh, good. That's an excellent idea. Smaller box.
It's got way more capacity, and the calendar and cycle life match that of the main pack.
Oh, cool.
So we should have done it before now, but it's great that we're doing it now. This is one of those inside baseball victories. That's kind of a big deal. But yeah, like the 12 volts is like very much a vestigial voltage.
Yeah.
And it's like absurdly low. So, I mean, even like basically powered Ethernet is like around 50 volts.
Yeah.
And so you can have like powered Ethernet. Nobody's like sweating it that like this is powered Ethernet, this like phone here. Nobody's worried about like powered Ethernet at like whatever 48, 50 volts. That's really what the car's low voltage system should be at.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. In fact, when we tore apart the Y, I was expecting to see that because you'd said that you were getting rid of weight and the length of wires and whatnot. And when I pulled it off, the harness looked kind of similar. So it is what it is.
And you really want to put power and data over the same wires.
That's right.
And have it be high speed, like higher speed than CAN bus.
Right.
And so you can like basically dump data on the bus instead of having all these point-to-point wires.
And this might be the last thing. I've never really been a fan of short sellers. I don't know whether you have a comment on that.
Well, I think that there's very few areas in life where you can sell things that you don't own, and the short selling really where you can sell shares that you don't own. When I said it was vestigial, I mean it came from an era when stocks were traded by people traveling on horseback to exchange stock certificates. And in order to have the transaction speed not take weeks, somebody would say, well, the stock certificate is coming on that horse. I don't have the stock certificate right now, but I promise you that I'm getting the stock certificate, and the rider is going to be here. I'm in New York. The rider is going to be here from Chicago in 3 days, and then I'll be able to give you the stock certificate. Yeah. That's where this whole silly thing arose. Yeah. Yeah. But then the problem is, like, the way short selling is used today is it's kind of like it's frankly used against the public, you know. And so most people aren't aware that short selling even exists, and then the ones that are, very few of them know actually how to use it. It's basically like 0.01% of stockholders know how to use short positions to get ahead, and it's like, I think, effectively a tax on the public.
I think it's immoral myself. I just don't think it's right at all. Yeah. A big group can come in and crush a company simply because, well, we're going to make a lot of money. I haven't made my my quota this month or what have you. So I really don't care for it.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla was under massive attack by the short and distort, where they take a short position and then they do everything possible to trash the company in 6 ways to Sunday. And they were successful. And this has now happened to Tesla twice. It happened in 2013, and it happened in basically 2017 through 2019. I mean, the intensity of the attack was crazy. And I was like, man, this you know, it would like cause you to lose faith in humanity, the degree to which this went on. And like, we don't have shorting in like private companies. The vast majority of companies, over 90%, are private, and you cannot short them. And yet somehow we get private companies get things done. So there's a perniciously false effective markets argument made for shorting, and but it is vice disguised as virtue.
Well, at the end of the day, we had a common adversary, and I'm really hoping that now, because he's bet on oil, and Biden has basically clobbered oil in a lot of different directions, I'm sure that he'll be skeptical about doing any more trades on the short end. Anyways, I can't thank you enough.
Sure.
I'd really like to shake your hand.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us the time. And
Absolutely.
I can't say enough about a lot of stuff, but I really can't say the most exciting thing that's happened to me in a long time was driving that the self-driving I'm telling you, it's just it blows your mind. Are you gonna let anybody else have that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we were gonna roll out the full self-driving to the whole fleet and make it available to the whole fleet. We're just being very careful about the testing, and I think there's actually sort of a dangerous middle ground that we have to be careful of, where the system is good like 99.9% of the time, and then that could lead people to be complacent, and then but then that one time where it's got issues that we don't want people to basically, it can be so good that you get comfortable, but not necessarily good enough to handle all of the corner cases. So we want to just make sure that in that transition to full self-driving, it's really we're taking as much care as possible.
Yeah. Well, I was happy with what we had on the autopilot. It's the first time I've ever gotten a chance to see what the scenery looks like. I always just do lines.
Yep.
Now I can have a look around and feel comfortable or confident that my hands are on the wheel, and if something goes wrong, I can correct, but I can also enjoy what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I said this publicly, but basically, a car that does not have self-driving in the future will be about as popular as a horse. Horses they're still horses. People have horses, and a horse is not what you use for day-to-day transport.
No.
Yeah.
But even a horse will get you home sometimes. If in the olden days they'd get drunk, fall asleep in the buckboard, and the horse would take them home. Self-driving, as far as I'm concerned, we're just getting back to horse.
Well, I think actually that's one of the things we're going to program into the car. That if you fall asleep in the car, it'll just take you home.
Yeah.
Like, it is most likely that's where you want to go.
Yes. And that's a great idea. Yeah.
And then we're even going to have it like so. If it detects that you're having issues, it'll take you to the hospital. Like if you say, like, just like
having a heart attack or something like that.
Something like, it'll just take you straight to the emergency room.
Well, I think I mentioned this already. I think that the self-driving feature is going to save more lives than seat belts, airbags, and every other thing that we've done to cars combined, because that's the way to go.
Absolutely. I mean, worldwide, there's about 1 million people a year die in car accidents, and that's a hell of a lot. And yeah, so there's like 10 million people that get seriously injured. So it's like, we got to hustle on this.
Yeah, and why not? We got the technology to do it. So.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks very much, Elon.
All right.
Anyways, I'm so flattered.
welcome.
I'm so happy